agenda. So thank you all for joining us for our updates on the Credential Engine data quality, currency policy, and our new registry reports. Today we will be covering, first of all, I would like to remind everyone that we are recording today's session. So if you have any background noise, please feel free to mute yourselves. Please use the chat at any time for any questions while we are going through today's presentation. We will have a Q&A at the end of this session. First, we will have Jeannie going over our credential registry policy, as well as doing a demo for the new services reports and the Q&A, and then we'll provide some next steps. And just to get us started, I will just kind of do a brief introduction, a reminder of what Credential Engine is and who we are. Credential Engine is a nonprofit organization with a mission to create credential transparency, revealing the credential marketplace and increasing credential literacy. So to empower everyone to make informed decisions about credentials, competencies, and pathways. We do this by building our common infrastructure and language, the Credential Transparency Description Language, the CTDL, and do this collaboratively while working with all of you, our partners, and empowering users to have the credential transparency. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Jeannie Kitchens, to dive into our updates.
Thank you, Scarlett. And again, welcome all. We really appreciate all of you joining. And as Scarlett noted, this will be recorded. So anyone who registered will receive a follow-up email and the recording. Because it is being recorded, feel free to use the chat at any time to ask questions or make comments. We will have Q&A at the end, and I'll ask Scarlett to kind of moderate the chat and let me know if I should pause. Otherwise, let's wait until the end for general Q&A. And again, please feel free to use the chat and ask any questions all along the way. We appreciate that. I just want to start off with talking a little bit about what the Credential Registry has always been meant to do, and what it's always been meant to do is to, require a level of data quality and currency for long-term permanence. The Credential Transparency Description Language and the registry supports an architecture that is really important because we can have historical data. So once something, for example, is no longer offered, or an organization, say, for example, closes, that data is meant to be retained in the registry. And that's important for many, many reasons, many use cases as well. And for consumers of the data, there are ways to be able to, for example, if you only want recent credentials that are being offered, you can search for only those as an example. But the quality is really important, as well as the currency up to a resource's life cycle, conclusion. And we've always had some quality controls in place. And however, what we've done is we've implemented some new automatic processes that are aimed at helping our partners, our users, maintain that data quality and currency in the registry. And so we're just kind of speaking the same language for the purpose of this webinar. By data quality, just very broadly, I'm referring to, accuracy of information, and you can read a lot more into that. But I think that's what it all boils down to. And currency meaning maintaining that accuracy over time, of course, up until the life cycle of something ending, and then it no longer has to be maintained. We use the word resource often because resource is really a handle for all the kinds of data that can be in the credential. So credentials, learning opportunities, assessments, organizations, transfer values, pathways, competencies, and so on are all resources in the registry. And with life cycle, I'm referring to the progression of a resource, beginning with an active status. Information about it may change over time. For example, maybe a resource is offered at new locations, or maybe the format of it has changed. And that's all supported in the life cycle up until something is no longer offered. And all these are important for the context of data quality and currency in the registry. So the registry, is really far more than a typical database. It is, it is a graph of these resources that provides valuable and consistent data. And it is the CTDL linked open data structure and other architecture features that I had already mentioned that become archival and support that data over its lifetime. And so, we always have an archival of past data in the registry as well as current data. So that's all built into the architecture. And for those of you who may be new to the Credential Registry or Credential Engine and aren't aware of the Credential Finder, you can take a look at that to get a good feel for all of the data in the registry, all the information that you see there in that finder, whether it's the filters for filtering your search or the detail pages, for looking at search results. That's the CTDL, that's the data from the registry. That's what we're talking about today. So with the Credential Registry, we have a number of existing quality and currency data controls. And I think it's important to know about these and know that we're building off of these. So I'm just going to quickly go over this list here. Since the Credential Registry launched back in 2017, we've always had a currency policy, but now we're able to put more automation and programmatic structure behind that policy to help everyone maintain that data in the registry. We've always had a credential minimum data policy, and that policy goes across all CTDL classes. So any kind of information that gets put into the registry will have a minimum data policy for, practical use, usability of the data. We've always had these benchmark models, and we continue to expand the benchmark models and evolve the benchmark models. And the benchmark models are best practices. So we want to go beyond minimum data. We want to have far more than the minimum. We want to have benchmark practices based on the type of the data. And these links can, of course, be dropped in the chat if that's helpful to folks while I'm going through this. The credential transparency description language is a quality control. Without having a common language, it's really impossible to have transparent and comparable data. So simply by using the CTDL and then putting that CTDL in that linked open data structure, we're creating a quality control from inception. It is a living language. And so it's always evolving in ways that address quality and transparency as well. We have data entry and validation checks in place. So the Credential Registry receives data from a set of tools, a publishing suite and APIs maintained by Credential Engine. And all of those tools have validation checks in place for different types of reasons. For example, a date should be a date. A numeric value should be a numeric value. So those kinds of things and other checks as well to make sure that the data, as far as an API can tell, is as accurate as possible. We have a number of tools for upkeep of the data. The publishing suite isn't just for getting data in the registry. The API isn't just for getting it in, it's also for maintaining it through the resources, life cycle, throughout that life cycle. And we've had in place duplicate checking for organizations. We have a lot of cross-state work going on. It's a really good example where we have national organizations, and it's really valuable for, say, a national certification body to have their data in the registry so it's reusable. And we don't want to have that example of that certification body in our account system or in the registry multiple times. So we do have ways of checking for that and taking advantage of the CTDL linked open data because it's reusable. And so for the example I gave of states is they can reuse that existing organization information and not have to maintain it. We also have always had a bunch of internal reports that's for our team to look at. And there may be a couple of other things that we could put on the list, but I just wanted everyone to know there's always been some controls in place, and we're going to be building off of those controls. So now we have some new things in place. We launched officially the first set of notifications that went out last night for duplicate information. And what is happening behind the scenes is we have services that are continuously looking for things. They're continuously looking for bad links, meaning, broken web page links, because data in the registry or the resources in the registry, will very often have or even be required to include a direct link to the web page about that resource. Continuous checking of duplicate resources, continuous data currency, continuous incomplete publishing, and continuous reports for publishers. So all these things have been put into place that you're seeing here on the screen, and they're all meant for being helpful tools for our users to directly access and to receive information in a timely manner to address data quality and currency. So with these automatic processes that are happening behind the scenes that are constantly looking, for the broken links and so forth, we've also put into effect the emails and notifications. Of course, an email would only be sent if something was found. We're not going to send emails saying, everything's fine. We're going to send an email to say, hey, it looks like you have a duplicate, please take a look. Please correct it if it is a duplicate. So those notifications began going out with this duplicate resources notification. That actually went out last night, and we're going to phase in these additional notifications. So broken web page notifications will begin next week, and then the following we'll move on to incomplete publishing notifications. And what I mean by incomplete publishing is that sometimes users might come into our publishing system, create some credentials, for example, and the learning opportunities that maybe are required to earn them, and, for example, might publish the credentials and have not published those learning opportunities. So to complete the publishing, they need to publish those learning opportunities. So that's what I mean by incomplete publishing. And currency policy notifications, as I noted, we're going to start off by looking for things with the last update date that has not been, going back to 24 months or older. And over time, we're going to tweak this so we can customize it more to each user. Like, for example, I know one of our partners updates their credentials, every 3 years. And so we'll look at customizing that further, but right now we're going to start with the 24 months. So that'll go out the following week. So you can see the pattern here. We want to phase all those in. And here is a sample of what those notifications look like. This is a template that you're seeing here. And so if you received one of the emails today, you'd say, oh, yes, it looks just like that. It's going to fill in, the publisher, who is the publisher in the account system. It's going to include the CTID. It will identify all of the people who received an email. So sometimes an organization may have an account with several people, which is great. And, it's important to know, okay, who has this information? So you will know that. And it will give you direct links to log in, go directly to the new reports that I'm going to go over and show you. and where you will also access instructions and a way to contact us. So that gives you a good feel for what those emails look like. And the account system that's used to send those emails also saves them as notifications. So when you log into your account, you can also see them, and you'll see them in your new messages here, and you'll also be able to see them at the top of your page. And so you have access to them as kind of like an archive as well if you need to look back at it and don't want to manage information via emails. So that's the background on the existing data quality, how we're building off of that, and automating processes. Now let's take a look at the reports. So there is a new Credential Registry Services app. That app is seamlessly tied in to the Credential Registry account system, and it's seamlessly tied into the Credential Registry Publisher system. For those who log in, for API users, you don't have to log in, right? Because you're using an automated process via an API that you already have approval to use. So any updates you make would be directly there, but to get to your reports, you have options, to log in, and any way you try to access them, you'll be able to get to that services report. So that is all linked into the existing system. And this is what the app looks like. It is available to all sandbox users, which is really important for testing in our sandbox. As a matter of fact, we were just meeting this morning with the Illinois team, who have some members on this webinar, going over testing in the sandbox. And we were using these reports to make sure that we were done with the testing. So they're available on the sandbox for quality purposes. And then they're all available on the Credential Registry for anyone who has an account. They can access their reports at any time. You don't have to wait for an email to access your reports. Those emails are simply to help let you know when there may be something to take care of, but otherwise this is going to be your go-to place to get reports about your data in the registry. And you can see here that on the left-hand side, there's search widgets. On the right-hand side, there are reports. I'm going to be largely focused on this report side. For those of you who are wondering what a widget is, that credential finder that I brought up earlier, there's options for basically turning that credential finder into a widget that you can copy and paste into your own website. And the purpose of that would be to kind of customize it for your audience to show, specific resources like via your website. But I'm going to be focusing over here, and we can talk about widgets in another webinar. You can see there are a number of reports here. I'm going to go over each one of the detailed reports briefly, and then I'm going to do a little demo. So we'll dig into those reports. The summary, you can see it's broken down into two sections, a summary report and a detailed report. They look very, very similar, and I'm going to show you, what those reports look like. And I'm going to start with the dashboard here. Every publisher, if you have, an account, that's how you got an API key. If you have an account, that's how you were able to get to our publishing tools. You have access to these reports, and you have a reports dashboard. And that is really cool. You just click on the dashboard link here, and it's going to give you a list of all the reports for which you have, you have data published. It will let you know you don't have any duplicates, or you don't have any currency issues, or it will let you know you have broken web page links or incomplete publishing, and you'll be able to follow those links directly, or you can use the reports menu to get to all of your reports. But I think this dashboard is going to be something you'll find very handy. So I'm just going to go over one here on the slide before I jump over to the actual app and do a little demo. This is the duplicates report. And I just want to point out here the format of the reports. You'll see that all of the reports follow the same structure. At the top of the reports pages, you can click to expand instructions. You can print those instructions or printer friendly. I know sometimes it's just really helpful to print something to a PDF. There's columns descriptions that explain what each column means, and a contact us. So if you contact us, we'll always try to reply within 1 business day to answer any questions. And I will expand these. I'll show you a sample. So each report will always have links at the top. Each report will have a way to search for an organization, select it, and then display all the related information. Your reports will, of course, default to your information. And the resource type is important because, as I was explaining, resources could be credentials, they could be learning opportunities, assessments. So if you want to look at reports for each resource type, then you would use this dropdown. And as I said, I'll show you the reports. The other thing to note here is where you see the underlines, those are actually hyperlinked. So the other great thing about these reports is you can link directly to information to see, well, what is it? You can look at it. You can even view it in the raw data in the registry, and every report has an export. So if it's helpful to, for example, print instructions and it's helpful to do an export, the export will export the report information to a spreadsheet that you can download. So that is the structure of each of the reports, with each report, of course, covering a different topic. This is a sample of what the instructions look like. And so what I did to get this screenshot was I clicked on the instruction button and it opened up and it provides instructions. If I were to click the print instruction button, it would format it, so you can print it as a PDF and print it on your printer or just save it as a PDF, whichever you prefer to do. And you can see in the instructions down here, what I highlighted are the instructions for the API users and for all other users. As I've been alluding to throughout this webinar, API users directly utilize our Credential Registry Publishing API. So whenever they're making some kind of a change or correction, they're directly using it as opposed to coming into the publishing system. But all users that have accounts can access these reports to see all of your information about the data in the registry. And I also wanted to point out one other page that's in our publishing system that's relevant here. And that's it's called an organization summary page. For API users, this isn't important for you because, again, you're just publishing directly to that registry. You don't have to go through an approval process. You've already done that by testing in our sandbox and then going to production and then just in real time publishing as things change. For those who use the publishing system, whether it's the bulk upload or manual entry, you have this organization summary page. And it's really great because it's where you can see all the information you've saved, the resources you've saved here. You can click on your tabs to look at a list of those resources. You can go directly to edit them. And just as importantly, you can approve them. So once you've made changes or any corrections or updates for quality or currency, if you're using the publishing system, you're going to come here. You're going to approve it, and then we're going to automatically be notified that you have approved that resource or those resources to be published, and we'll click a button and we'll send it off to the registry, and you will receive notifications that all that happened, there's been approvals, and your data is published to the registry. And so here's some screenshots of the reports. But let's just go ahead and take a look at them. And I see the chat going. Scarlett, let me know if there's anything I should pause and address. Otherwise, as I said, I'll wait until the Q&A, and I'll just proceed on to the demo part.
You can proceed.
Okay, great, just want to check.
Yep.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is the Credential Registry, Services app. You can see it looks exactly like the screenshot I just showed. Again, anyone who has an account with Credential Engine has access, you have access, and you will see only, of course, you'll see your information. I get to see everything, because I'm with Credential Engine. And you can see here's our list of reports on the right. That's where we're highly focused today. If I were to click any of these reports, I'm going to go directly to them. I also have an option to go to my dashboard. And actually, I'm going to show you a different dashboard, and I have a menu to go to report. So I already have a dashboard queued up here, and I'm going to start there. And actually, since we were working with Illinois, the state of Illinois this morning, I thought this was really helpful, and I thought it would be a really great example. No, this is our sandbox. This means that they're testing data. And so we're using these reports as a helpful aid to make sure there's no duplicates. Of course, currency isn't relevant at this point, but we can see, there's no broken links, there's no incomplete publishing. We can see that there's 3,790 credentials. And I can also see there's a credential without an owns or offers, and that's important to check out. And we'll take a look at that report in just a moment. But the point here is if you log in, you will see the name of your organization, and you'll see a summary of the reports and whether or not there's anything you should check out. 0 items would mean there's no duplicates. 0 items would mean everything is current, at least it's been updated within the last 24 months. There's a quantity, it means that it's related to the quantity of items or resources that you will see in your report. So that's what your dashboard looks like. And I'm just going to go ahead and go on to the duplicates report. And I'm going to click the instructions. So you can see all I have to do is click it here. It will expand. I can see all of my instructions. Well, what am I supposed to do? If you're an API user, you're going to follow the instructions here. All others are basically going to remove the duplicate. So basically these instructions say, look at your report, identify which one is a duplicate, because there's 2 of the, in this case, credentials with the same exact information. So check it out and remove your duplicate. If it's not a duplicate, take a closer look at it and probably update the information because it would be confusing to folks who could easily see them as the same exact thing. So that's basically what the instructions say. And I can print here, and then I could, print it to my printer if I have one. I don't actually use a printer anymore. I would print it to a PDF and then save it. So you could see, it prints nicely. And you can see that there's also the column descriptions, and all of a sudden my mouse is not working right. And a contact us. Okay. And so let me close those instructions. Just doesn't want to close for me. It's okay, I'm going to move on. So that's the duplicates report. And of course, it's when you find identical information in the registry. And what we're hoping is that with our sandbox testing, that will soon become a non-issue as controls will be in place, to prevent those duplicates from occurring. Now we're looking at another report called the currency report. And the currency report will display resources that have not been updated for more than 24 months. And I just chose an example here that has, 3 resources, 3 credentials that have not been updated in 24 months. And you could see that they're all hyperlinked, so I could follow the links. So if I follow this link, I could view it in the Finder. For example, if I want to look at the raw data in the registry, I can view that raw data. And I can go directly to the publisher. And I can click edit here, which I'm not going to do because this is not my credential to update, but just for demonstration purposes, you can see how helpful that is to be able to have those direct links in here. If I needed to download it, I would click the export button, and it's going to export as a spreadsheet that you can save and share or utilize to help you make your updates. And again, we're going to see the instructions and the column descriptions. So instead of clicking the instructions on this one, I'm going to click the column descriptions, and you can see it shows a table and an explanation of what everything here means. To clarify, if anybody is like, well, what does this mean? Here's a definition. And then I can roll that back up. So the instructions, of course, for the currency report say, please review these resources and update them in the registry. One of the things that we are going to be doing to this report is adding another column here to include probably something like a button or a checkbox to indicate that they are current, because it may be that it hasn't been updated in 24 months, but all of the information is still completely accurate. So we will be adding that additional functionality there as well. So that is the currency report. And let me go on to the broken web page links report. And as I was talking about with the PowerPoint, this is literally resources in the registry that have a link to a web page about that resource. And so it will include a status column and all of those same kind of URLs here. So you can go directly to see it in the Finder. You could go directly and edit it in the publishing system. You could look at the raw data. It will tell you which CTDL property is broken. And you can even click a link to view the bad URL here as well. And up at the top, we can see, again, that same pattern. And notice here we have report statuses type. I'm going to click that. One of the interesting things about web pages is there's a lot of different types of statuses for broken links. And so we have a whole list of them here. So if you're looking at a report and you're wondering, well, what is a timeout? This report statuses type is intended to provide that information, a timeout. Again, we have our column description, our contact us, and those instructions are going to tell you, if you're an API user, how to update your data, and again, for all other users, how to update your data. And this is particularly important with that lifecycle status because of that permanence of the data. If something is no longer offered, it should not be removed. Rather, the lifecycle status should be updated to indicate something is no longer offered. So that all those instructions are in here. The incomplete publishing report. So I'm sure everyone's getting the gist here that the reports have a very consistent interface. For this report, what this means is in the publishing system, there's something that's incomplete. In this case, it's called a condition profile. So it's, for example, requirements for completing a credential are not completed. And so this is telling this, organization and the users with it, follow the links, update this information, and complete your publishing. And again, we have instructions, we can print them, we have our column descriptions. The columns largely are very consistent, just some reports have more columns than others because of the nature of the report. And again, you could contact us. Oh, and let me click this resource type. So you can see here that if I, this report actually defaulted to all types, but if I want to narrow it down to say just credentials or assessments or learning opportunities or organizations, it would filter on that. And because there are no assessments that are incomplete, it's going to say it found 0 results because that publishing is not an issue here. So that's the incomplete publishing report. And this report, the credential type report, is just really handy. This report is not to indicate anything, any issues necessarily, although in our sandbox, it's very useful because we can filter on types of credentials just to kind of double check, for example, maybe licenses or to double check certificates to make sure they're mapped correctly to the CTDL. But this is a way that, for example, even a publisher that has a large quantity of, this one has 3,892 credentials. If you want to have a way to say, well, what are all the credentials that I have published to the registry? You could come here and you could just use this as a useful tool. You can export all of this information. Again, you have all these links here if there's anything you want in particular you want to look at. And the point of this is to be able to filter on a credential type, to maybe in the sandbox, just do a little quality assurance, and on production, just to kind of like know what it is that you have out there. And like, for example, I can filter on certificate, and it's going to show me only those credentials that are certificates. So for this report, quality on the sandbox, on production, it's more informational. And I thought this was a great example because of the large number of credentials they have published and to have a way to do that. And we'll have additional reports similar to this as we continue to expand the services app, just to have helpful information for all of you. And one more. This is the final report that I will show you. This is the credential organizations without owns or offers. And what the instructions here would explain is that this report is for identifying organizations that have been published without as a credentialing organization, but nothing has been published to indicate they own or offer any credentials or any learning opportunities or any assessments. So I thought this was really great because I had mentioned we're working with Illinois in our sandbox. And so this was a way to double check on one last thing, before switching to production, to check on this school to see if that is accurate information or if there was something in the publishing that needed to be updated to include the credential that they offer, for example. So that is a really handy report in our sandbox. And again, on the production side for the Credential Registry, any user who has an account, whether you're publishing via the API or using our publishing system, you have access to all of these reports that you just saw here, and you can start using them right away. You don't have to wait for an email from us. So that is the demo of the reports. And let me see what kind of questions we have.
Yeah, so we have a question from Gina in the chat asking when the owner or offers of credentials approve a third party for publishing, which organization will be notified about needing the updates?
For third parties initially, did I catch that right, Scarlett?
Yes.
This is for third party, yeah. Okay, for those of you who are wondering, what are they talking about? What is third party publishing? So third party publishing is when, for example, the state of Illinois or the state of Minnesota or some other organization, often a state agency, will publish resources like credentials on behalf of their credentialing organizations. They handle all of that publishing for them. Initially, though, the notifications are going to go to the publisher. We want to work through any tweaks to the process since we're just launching this and make sure, you know, the emails make sense, that the instructions make sense and so forth. And so initially we're sending those to the publisher, and for third-party publishers, they have a choice. They can indicate in the Credential Engine account system email addresses with contacts with the credentialing organizations, for example, with colleges. And if that's the preference of that third-party publisher, then what happens currently is our publishing system would keep them in the loop. They would know, oh, you know, just for example, the state of Michigan just, you know, published my credentials. This is great to know, you know, so it keeps them in the loop. They don't have to respond to it because the third party is doing the publishing for them. So I thought it was important for everyone to know that. And then to answer the question directly, initially it will be the publisher. Once we work out the tweaks, if as a third-party publisher, you put contacts in there because you want them to be in the loop, then they will begin to be in that information loop. Other questions, Scarlett?
Yeah, so we did get a quick question from Carlos, just asking about the learning opportunities if they're required. And I answered that learning opportunities are not required, just only applicable for those credentials they're connected to. Same with assessments. So just wanted to flag that for everyone. And then we have a question from Wayne that is, to help with data quality, does the CTDL itself state data types for a property? For example, are there properties that are only numeric, alphanumeric?
Yeah, I had mentioned, you know, the CTDL itself in terms of a schema doesn't do that, but for the purposes of publishing and the registry, we essentially use a profile of the CTDL that does those kinds of validation checks that I had mentioned earlier. So it can check to make sure a date is a date, right? A numeric value where there should be one is a numeric value. Where a URL needs to be a URL and that it's a good URL. So there is a number of validation checks that are in place through the publishing system, and the publishing system is, you know, bulk upload, it's manual entry, it's the API that some users use directly from their system, and that API is actually behind the entire publishing system. So yeah, there are validation checks in place as well. Thank you for the question. Any other questions?
Another quick question from Carlos, just regarding the third-party publishing. How can we request a connection with the third party that is currently publishing a credential that your organization owns?
Great question. Carlos, you just contact us and we can, you know, provide that information. And so if through any of the reports you can contact us, you know, it's not a problem, but for those kinds of specific questions, we just need to know, and now that we know, we can just follow up with you. So thanks for asking. Other questions in the chat? Or anyone like to unmute and ask a question?
Yes, if you would like to, you can unmute and ask, or please go ahead and put them in the chat.
Okay, we'll just give everyone a moment here to ask some questions. We're more than happy to answer them. Of course, if you receive an email, again, we're phasing in the process. As I said, we want to make sure it's helpful. We want to make sure the instructions are useful, make sense, and we want to tweak the process where we need to tweak it. So, we welcome feedback on the process, as we add more reports and as we want to have a scalable process for these emails to go out programmatically and so forth. We'll also keep everyone looped in as we add features. For example, I had mentioned we want to be able to have a way to, for example, directly remove, if you have, a duplicate, instead of having to go to the edit, just remove it right there from the report. We also want to have a way to indicate when things are current. So that way we know, okay, they definitely looked at it, they got the email, they looked at the report, and they responded, so then we know if you don't have broken links and any other issues, then that data is current and you can just check a box to indicate the currency. So we'll have updates on the way. We're looking to, make sure the process works well for everyone, get that feedback, enhance it, do things like, include others in the communications where those third-party publishers have opted in to do that. It's really up to the third-party publisher. And so our next steps then are, this app is now available. We'll send out an announcement through our account system to make sure all our users are aware of that. You do have to, create a Credential Engine account in order to use the publishing system or to get an API key. So anyone that has data that's in the registry already has an account. If you don't know your username or password, there's, the typical recovery things in place. And you have ability to add other users to your account if you need to do that. The sandbox version of the app is available now as well. So we're fully deploying that for all testing in the sandbox, making that part of the process. I think that's going to be really helpful in the testing processes. And the publishers are receiving emails. As I said, the first one went out last night. The other types of emails that we have in place, now are being phased in over the next 3 weeks. We encourage all publishing partners to review their data in the registry. You don't have to wait for an email to log in and see those reports and check them out, take a look at them, put them to use. And of course, stay tuned for more information. We'll keep everyone informed and contact us with any questions that you have along the way. And Scarlett, if we don't have any additional questions coming, I want to give everyone, another moment in case there are any. Otherwise, we can go ahead and conclude this webinar.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. And as always, you will get this presentation afterwards with the webinar recording. Keep an eye out for your email and announcements for all of these great links. And please reach out if you have any questions, and we can give you guys 10 minutes of your day back.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you joining us today. Talk to you soon.
Thanks all.